Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. You are listening to that great podcast in the sky. And if love remains in, I am its humble messenger, Michael Leavitt. It is so good to be with everyone today. And I'm excited to have on some guests on, some exciting people who are putting out apps specifically for piano instruction, I think, and I'm excited to talk to them about it and what's going on with their app. And I've looked at it a little bit, but excited to have Frits and Victoria on. Welcome to And If Love Remains. Thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I usually don't have people on who just to like pitch a product or something like that. I'm more interested in a conversation. But I thought your guys' app is so unique and so useful to me, as a piano teacher, as a music teacher, a music mentor. And so I really wanted to have you guys on. I think it's a unique platform. But first of all, talk to me about you guys. You're based in the Netherlands, but talk to me a little about your history, some of your what got you into music and things like that. Share that with me.
That's a long story.
Long story, and thank you for that introduction, Mike. This is a pitch, of course, but you like the story, and I guess we also have, besides that you call it a unique app, which I think is a compliment, there is also a nice story behind it. I'm from the Netherlands, and I think everything that we are going to talk about today is my fault and started with me.
Yeah.
Because I played music myself when I was younger. I started to play the violin when I was 4. I wanted to start at 3 years old after I saw the New Year's concert that every year is happening in Vienna. But my mother couldn't find a violin small enough for me to start. So on the 5th of February, when it was my birthday, she gave me a guitar with no bow. And for the entire year, I ran around with a guitar under my chin. Where the bow was. So that was my introduction to the life of music. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, I've played violin for 9 years, and after that I switched to piano because I thought maybe trying something different. Initially, I was thinking of going to the conservatory, but then I changed my mind, and I ended up doing a business study actually in the Netherlands, and that's where
we've got to be practical, right? Us musicians.
Exactly. I was too afraid that I was not going to be able to get, ends meet, especially because I was, of course, a student at the time. So I thought, I will do a business study and then see how I can combine the passion. And then I started, that's where I started with my first application at the time, back in 2011. I combined my passion of music by building my first application, back in 2011. And this was an application that I did as more of a project. But after a year and a half of development, and I guess because the App Store at the time was fairly new, there were not a lot of competitors. Because, mind you, I was, of course, a student and I didn't have any money for marketing or whatever. I guess because it was so empty, I got noticed. And at that time, it was just a one-time pay-as-you-go to get the application. And that became a great success. And I made my first income, which was the start of why we're talking about Clefer here today.
Right. Well, what? Just out of curiosity, what was that application?
So it was an application that was able to, in a very limited format, but still very functional at the time, convert acoustic music into sheet music. So any artist or creator that was on the road at the time and that had an iPad available to him or was sitting around the campfire and suddenly a great idea came along, they could use the iPad application to play, to record whatever they had at that moment, I guess as a, how do you call it? Inspiration. Mm-hmm. And then they could then, after when they would be home, they could convert it and work on it, in more of the big programs, if they wanted to use it. So I guess
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's it's funny. That's like the holy grail of music notation. To be able to just play something and have it appear on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also our blood, sweat, and tears for the past 8 years, music notation. But I guess we will touch upon that during this podcast.
Yeah. What Victoria, when did you come into this crazy environment? How did you guys meet and yeah.
Yeah, well, we met in Brazil because then he wanted to restart again your project, right?
Yeah, we were in Brazil. So at some point, maybe in the timeline. So in 2011, I started this first project, and then we wanted to expand on feature. So in 2000, I think it was 2016, we restarted the development again. The previous application, also due to software restrictions and some updates on Apple side, were difficult to keep current. So we started a new initiative, which is actually now Clefer, and this initiative was actually happening in Brazil due to a contact I had at the time, but also because Brazil, even until today, has fantastic software developers. They're really very well educated. They really know how to handle these things. So that's how we ended up in Brazil, and that's actually where I met Victoria initially, because Victoria was selected by the Apple Academy. That's so Apple in the States has different initiatives and academies around the world. Unfortunately, not in the Netherlands, but they do have one in Brazil, and it's quite difficult to actually get selected. But once you get selected, they really train you to become a great professional, and that's how I met Victoria at the time, because we needed help with iOS for Apple and guidelines. And as music does in so many cases, it brings people together and love, and then it brought us together, and now we're married, have a son and 2 dogs.
Hey, that's love it. Love it. First music coding.
Exactly.
That's great. So Victoria, do you have a history in music, or are you the key developer? Or
Not with piano, but I used to play guitar. Also, when I was a teenager, it was a huge thing. If you could play the guitar, you were kind of cool. And I also used to play because I could express my emotions, and I felt, music is when you play an instrument, you can really express everything that you can't say with words. So you're just pouring, all your feelings and all the drama of, teenage years. So I was playing the guitar.
We all have that teenage angst. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't leave us. We stay musicians.
Still here.
For sure.
So I had that passion, and at the time in Brazil, playing piano, where I come from and the school I was going, it wasn't a huge thing. It's quite unique instrument, not very accessible at the time. So guitar was my chosen, instrument.
Yeah.
And nowadays I'm starting to take piano lessons now. So because we are working on this, and I want to understand more the struggle, the ups and downs, the motivation part, all of that.
Very good, very good. So, out of curiosity, is that original app still available?
No, it's not actually, because, like I said, it was quite tedious to keep the software running, and it was also at that time limited when it came to functionalities. Also because the whole world of apps and the accessibility to it changed so rapidly, almost with the speed of light. So it was much better if we would have just started from scratch, which we actually did, to make it a more solid product.
Gotcha. It's interesting. Like when you talk about apps, a lot of people wonder like why there are more apps on Apple, or why so many apps that are on, the Apple Play Store are not available for Android and things like that. And I think, I think there's a good practical reason. Maybe you guys can explain that a little bit. Why is Apple the platform of choice for so many apps?
I think it all comes down to quality. Apple has an enormous strict gatekeeping system.
Guidelines.
So it's very difficult, meaning that they don't want rubbish on their app store. It has both sides. It has two sides. I mean, on one hand, you can say that's fantastic because at least that if the app is on the app store, it works because Apple really checks it. On the other hand, sometimes you don't pass that gatekeeper, and then applications that actually in a sense could be good applications, they don't allow them, and that's that constant friction between developers and Apple. And Google has a much more liberal system, but then again, the downside is that the apps on the Google are sometimes of a less quality, not very well maintained. There could be
on the device too.
Could also be security issues. So you have these different. I think that's the main difference. And why did we start on iOS? I think it's because we have some, and that came through Victoria, we had some connections through Apple. And besides that, we're focusing, as you mentioned in the beginning, on an application that assists piano teachers to help, students practice songs. It's not that we're one of the many that are out there that wants to replace teachers, because I guess from where we come from, we understand very well that that's not possible. And Apple is also very strong when it comes to music endorsement and education. So it was the logical choice to do.
Yeah.
However, for the Android users that are listening to your podcast, we are actually finalizing the Android development, and we will roll out the Android application also within the next, I think, 3 to max 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into the app because I think you're right. I think there are a lot of apps out there, and I don't want to mention names, but there are many apps out there that are very, you don't need a teacher. You can learn music on your own. And I got no problem with people. Listen, I'm a self-learner to a large extent. I had some amazing teachers growing up. But learning technique, you can't learn from an app. It's literally impossible. And so what inspired you? Like what niche were you trying to fill, but with Clefer?
Well, I think it's a good question. Actually, so the main focus that we wanted to do was to create an application, of course, from a quality point of view that really is good, being able to capture acoustic sounds, and also from a digital piano using a MIDI connector. The latter is much easier to do, but it has always been for us a challenge that we wanted to solve in order to also capture that you can play, for instance, on a grand piano. And because that technology, and actually under the technical people, under your listeners, that stands for, MIR, they call that in the software arena, which stands for Music Information Retrieval. That's purely a technical definition that you only have in the digital world, whereby everything when it comes to, capture sounds waves, and then you have harmonics and overtones and all kinds of white noise that our ears as a human are actually perfectly trained, so we don't hear that. But when you play a C4 with an acoustic piano, the microphone doesn't know actually what to filter out, so you also hear the overtones, which is the C5 and the C6. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but you can very quickly understand that it's very difficult then for us to understand what is it that the player actually played, because if we hear the C4 and the C5, did they intentionally play the C5, or is it just the overtone of the C4, and is that the trigger? So you can imagine we had to come up with all kinds of solutions in order to filter out and to manage to really understand what is it that the user did.
Not to mention, if you play C4, you might not be playing C4.
Exactly.
In other words, how many pianos are perfectly in tune?
Yeah, exactly.
Not too many.
Correct. So we had to also use some kind of leverage on both sides in order for people with a less tuned piano to also be able to have it working.
How that's got to be such a difficult technical challenge. I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but I mean, I just can't. You know, if somebody's playing, you know, a Chopin or something, because you know, if somebody's playing a polyphonic piece of music, in other words, a piece of music that has a chord structure or something that where different notes are being played at the same time, that takes a lot of computation, shall we say, to figure out not just what's being played, but what's right, what's wrong, compare it to the music. I mean, to me, that's just an incredible feat.
Right, and you also want the results still in this lifetime. So, with other words,
right.
You know, we need to very, you know, effective coding needs to take place in order to also fairly quickly give the right results, and that we don't take forever to compute this. And I think that is why it took us so long to have an application from cover to cover that made sense, because we had enormous struggles. And mind you, this struggle is not just ours. This is everyone's struggle in the field, because there is only so much research being done. And that research is often open in the open domain. So everyone jumps on, you know, when a new paper gets released, everyone jumps on it, try to see if that might improve the stability of their solution. But yeah, that slowed us down a bit. And of course, COVID happened, and we also had to refocus, because often what happened is that we finally came to a milestone from the technology point of view. But of course, the market also didn't, you know, sit still. So then when we finally thought we were there, others out there already managed to beat us to the punch and had something similar to what we wanted to do. And my vision has always been to not do the same as what the others are doing. So yeah, we sometimes had to pull the handbrake or make a 180 to pivot again, to make sure that what we would be releasing was something unique in the space with a different approach. And I think I'm happy now and proud to say that where Clefer is now, we are on that path, because
What are some of those unique aspects of Clefer that you are really excited about, that you think set your app apart from other apps?
I think the main one is that we really embrace music educators. We don't come with an application with some buzzwords on the website saying
you don't need teachers.
You don't need teachers.
You can play this song in one day. You know, a very complicated piece,
like Bohemian Rhapsody within one day without any prior music knowledge. That's impossible, and it's not something, you know, people that often try to learn something, especially music. They have a goal, they are passionate. Like Victoria said earlier, it creates feelings. It's just unfortunate then if you come with these false promises, people will give up on something that you don't really have to give up on. So rather than going to people that never played or has never read notes, we are focusing on people that actually did play in the past, say 10 years ago, or, you know, before they went to college, and then they stopped because of
life
happening, and so and want to pick up again. And we're really starting. Clefer starts there, so you can pick up, and we've co-developed this actually with a lot of teachers. And that was always an oversight on my part, primarily. I always thought that teachers did not want to do anything to do with me, because we were, you know, I was afraid that they were thinking we were eating their lunch. But actually, when we started to do some market research and we approached teachers whilst we were still developing, they were embracing it, because we really listened to what the teacher said, because they're the professionals.
Their struggles, their needs.
And we try to come up with a solution and then go back to the teachers to say, hey, would this work for you? And then the teachers actually saw that we took their input seriously. It was not just the marketing. No, we actually immediately built what most of the teachers wanted to see. And now a lot of teachers are actually using it, and they're pilot. You know, we're only out, you know, for a small bit, but people are piloting it, and yeah, it's being adapted very well. And teachers actually, if you use words of the teachers when they come back to us, they see it as an extension of their, you know, in-person music lessons.
Very good. How do you find piano mentors and instructors like myself? How do you find that they're using this? What's like a best practices for using the app?
I guess, well, so we have a pilot group of people, and now also, we have mouth to mouth, whereby teachers are talking with each other. But I think the most important thing, and it all comes down to that, is motivation. All teachers that we've spoke to, and we've spoken with teachers from all over the world, from Europe to the North America, to Asia, to South America, they all have a common struggle. And that struggle is, how do I motivate my students when they're home to play? Because there is all kinds of distractions. They're only on their phones. They get
and as a teacher, you can only do so. I mean, if you're meeting with a student once a week, like that does nothing.
Exactly. And parents often don't know how to motivate, because if the parents don't have a background in music, they can't tell if it's good or. I mean, luckily my mother, she was the driving force of my success, because she made me play and practice piano and violin every day for at least 45 to an hour. And of course, sometimes I would really get upset, but I understand now why teachers say that is one of their biggest struggles. And I think that's why Clefer can come in very nicely, because it is on a digital device, and most people are, especially the younger generation, are on digital devices. When you turn on Clefer, we have disabled notifications so that you don't get distracted with all the other stuff that comes to you. And what we are working on at the moment, because that's a big ask of the teachers, we're building a feature whereby teachers can, on a remote way, get feedback. So if let's for instance say a student comes twice a month, every other week, for the weeks that they're not there, they can use Clefer, and Clefer will send the responses and the progress to the teacher, so that they can monitor from a distance what is happening, and maybe give a little bit of small input to keep them going. And that's what teachers say. They say, hey, listen, our students are actually practicing now, because it's in a digital format. It's not, and it's following, traditional music guidelines. It's not overly gamified. It's not overly distracting.
And thank you.
And they come back, and then we can even make progress more, because they actually did their homework. So now, things go faster.
And they don't feel they are in the dark practicing, because we have Clever Coach inside of it. So it's always talking to you almost as if there's someone sitting there next to you and guiding you through the whole process. And hey, maybe you should try it like this. Let's go a bit slower. I think now you're doing great. Let's go a bit faster. Let's practice the left hand only. Let's now practice the right. Now maybe it's time to do both hands at the same time. So you feel the progress as well, and you keep on going because you see a response. But if you're just sitting here and you have no response of what's going on, if what you're doing is right, and maybe then you are learning the wrong way, and then in the next lesson with your teacher you feel that you actually didn't make any progress, that can be very unmotivating.
Right.
Well, I think that's like from a student standpoint, I think that's the biggest thing. If you're making progress, you're more willing to practice. You're more willing to spend time at the instrument, and one of the things I do with my students is I try to encourage them. I say, listen, I don't want you to go a full week frustrated, because there's nothing worse than you being frustrated for a full week. So if you have any questions, call me, let me know so I can help you get through this. And if there's a way to do that, remotely with an application, I mean, that's just an enormous benefit, both to the teacher, but mostly to that student who, may love music, but they feel like they're just never going to make progress. And music can be tedious, but if you can see that increasing progress every week, or even a little bit every day, I mean, you're just more motivated to get to the instrument.
Yes. Yeah, and that's it. And everything that you do, if it's learning an instrument or learning a language, it takes discipline and practice. And and Clever really, we've done some studies, and we see that 80% of people that start with something new, it's not related just to music, it's the language or something else, they drop out within the first 24 months. Because of lack of discipline, or they don't like it. So that's an expensive group to target to.
But you know what? I think that lack of discipline is because they don't see the. It's one of two things. It's either improper expectations. They expect to be able to play something that's out of their range too quickly. I mean, that happens a lot. But the other thing is that they just don't see continual progress, and I mean, I get it. Like you can. It's a lot easier to be disciplined. If you're working out and you see those pounds coming off, as an example, you're way more motivated to stick to the program you're at, versus if you're like stuck for 3 weeks, you're like, well, what's the dang point?
But that's exactly it. And you use the example of losing weight. That's exactly it. You eat a little less, you move a little more, you weigh yourself on the scale, and then when you see every week that you're losing weight, that's the motivator. And I guess that is really the key word here, the motivation, which has been lacking when students leave their teachers. And I think Clefer, and what Victoria mentioned, we've introduced the Clefer coach. That's not some kind of an AI standalone coach. Absolutely not. It's actually built together with teachers. It gives responses based on our own trained MIR data set. So it's uniquely tailored to each student. It's not a fit for all. Every student we will listen to, and the Clefer coach will give unique guidance. If we see that, for instance, to give you a nice example, a lot of teachers said, listen, sometimes hitting the right note is not the most important thing for us. For us, rhythm is more important. So if we see sometimes that students are struggling, even if they play the right notes or not, but the rhythm is off, the coach will tell them, you know what, forget about the notes, just try to focus on the rhythm, independently if you are playing the right or incorrect notes. So that methodology that you see teachers, maintain as well in their own practice, we have built the entire Clefer system on that. So it's, and like I said, it's unique to you might get completely different feedback than I get. And your lessons and exercises that you get suggested might be completely different than mine. But that's also how it is, because people are different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of goes to the question of the accuracy of the app. Not just notes, but rhythmically. Does it recognize retardandos and rubatos and things like how closely does the app follow the score? Is it able to make adjustments, for artistic, things like that? I mean, clearly it's meant for somebody to learn a piece, but how accurate is it overall?
So the accuracy is actually very good. I said to Victoria, so I think 2.5 months ago, we actually went to a conference for the first time, whereby we showcased the app, which was in a very big, open space, and all kinds of people came to try it, and it was actually the acoustic version. And it worked very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me at least was the point that I thought, okay, now we're really in a good point, because if this thing still works acoustically whilst all kinds of other piano sounds are in the background and people are talking, that's a good indication. And we can also we have different errors that we can see. For instance, one of the ones that people like a lot is the octave error, meaning that the piano keys, they're all repetitive. So sometimes you play one octave too high, but then theoretically the keys look the same as the octave you should have been playing in, and this is something that also recognizes. So when you do that and you play, for instance, in the C5 octave, we say to you, hey, you know what? You actually played the right keys, but in an octave too high. So if you just go down one octave, you'll be completely where you have to be. And so, we don't trash you with negative feedback. We always try to positively reinforce you. But there's also an enormous depth and detail of what we can spot. We can spot if you missed, for instance, a sharp. If we see that you've played all kinds of notes incorrectly, but there is a sharp, we don't tell you for each note this is bad. We said, you know what, you just missed this because you probably missed the sharp. So it's on that kind of level, of course, that we're working. And you were talking about rhythm. We actually have and we got the patent already on a uniquely created rhythm trainer, whereby we use haptic haptics by pressing on the keys of your, by using your phone as an instrument to practice your rhythm. And teachers love it a lot because you can even do it in the train on your way to school with your headphones on. You don't even need your piano.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. Now, in thinking about this, I can very much see this working especially well with younger students and simple pieces and things like that. As you get into more intermediate and advanced pieces, I can see the difficulty compounding. So how if somebody is maybe a more advanced player, how well does this, and they want to learn a piece, maybe they want to learn a Chopin etude or something like that. Can it work with something like that?
It can also do difficult pieces. I think it's still good to say also to manage expectations. If you are a very good pianist, you don't need Clefer because you already know how to play it. However, that doesn't mean we don't have songs for you. And there are also different features. Like one of the features that we have is just a score viewer. All the songs that we are working on, and we're also, working on expanding the library. You can also just, if you want good quality songs, we're making all of our arrangements in-house by professional arrangements. So because we really go for quality, we don't grab the stuff that is out on the street. We start all the classical arrangements and also all the popular arrangements that are currently under copyright from, the pop songs, all are made in-house. So people that maybe just are looking for a good quality arrangement can just come to the Clefer app and use that as a score viewer.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What, how many pieces, how many arrangements do you have, and what's your plan for expansion on that?
Good question. So we started initially, of course, with public domain songs because obviously you need licenses, and those are easy to come by. But I'm very happy to at least announce that we are talking with the biggest publishers in the States. I just came back from a visit again, and we're very close finalizing this. So whether I see within the next 2 to 3 months, we will have all the copyrighted songs starting to get into Clefer. And we're also working with some individual artists that own their own copyright, but are, very trending on social media. And we're also, partnering with them to make their songs available in Clefer so that their followers who are not as savvy on the piano yet can play it. Because I think it's good to mention, each song in Clefer is not just the sheet music. Our unique approach is that we also have lessons and exercises. We call that the learning path. And for each song that will appear in Clefer, we will have a learning path. Those are not automatically generated. They're actually made by teachers. So once we've made an arrangement, the arrangement goes to a qualified teacher, and the teacher makes it and breaks it down into different, steps on how they would even teach it. So the entire path, if you want to start with a new song, all the lessons in small, bite-sized meal pieces are there. So
that's great.
Very helpful.
Oh, that is helpful. That's wonderful. Victoria, let me ask you, as somebody who's relatively new to the piano, I'm sure you've been using the app and have been, but what's been your experience and how has it helped you in your learning?
Well, it has helped me immensely because I have tried other ways too. I have tried a YouTube, tiles that come, on the keyboard.
The piano roll, the famous piano roll.
Yeah, I have tried all of that, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't, because I don't know. It's when you get lessons. I feel like when I'm using the app, it's what comes closer to the lessons I have with my teacher, and that I had with my previous teacher as well last year.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying that when you are using Clefer and practicing by yourself, sitting there on your own, sometimes feeling stuck, and then with Clefer you don't feel that you are stuck, because it's always giving you, well, maybe you should try it like this now. Maybe you should go a bit slower. Let's just go with one hand. Let's take one step back first, so you can move forward. And that's the difference.
I think that's such a unique thing to be able to recognize that you're struggling, then that's huge.
But I feel that it's made in such a cute way that I don't feel overwhelmed by making mistakes.
Right.
I
think one of the struggles I find with my students a lot of times is that they almost don't even recognize when they make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they think it's either just a slip up, or they think that or they don't even recognize that they're putting a gap in between notes and things like that. And then it becomes part of the habit, when they learn a piece, to always put a gap in, or to always, play the wrong note and then fix it. All these little habits, and I could see this app really forcing you, being that kind of alarm clock, that coach to say, "Uh-oh, you did something wrong," even if it's in a friendly way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the catch too, because instead of me practicing on my own, by myself, nobody around, no Clefer, and then next week I go to my teacher, and then she sits down and she says, "Yeah, okay, you got the rhythm, but now you are doing all kinds of other things wrong." So she also feels, now I have to unlearn. You need to unlearn those bad habits, because nobody was there to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
no, I think it's so huge. Yeah,
and I think like you mentioned, it helps, I think, that the Clefer coach will take you a step back. If we really see that the user is struggling, it doesn't make any sense to keep going, because they only drive themselves further into the ground. What often helps, it helped with me when I was playing piano, but we also hear that from others, is to just move it one level down, to do something that you're 100% able to play. That will boost your motivation, and then often, if you give it another go, what you were trying to do before, actually now this time it will work. And this is done all automatically for you when the coach sees that you're struggling somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and as a player myself, it's really the hardest thing for me to do. It's not to play a piece in full. It's to take bite-sized pieces. I just want to play it. I want to hear the piece in its entirety, in its beauty, with mistakes and all. And that's the worst thing that you can do. So the fact that you break it down and kind of coach people and not force people, but coach people to help them to take those bite-sized pieces with the understanding that they're going to be able to play the whole thing. I think that's such a huge benefit.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. What I wanted to say is that I think the whole, of how we got here and understanding this. Like Victoria is now taking lessons. In Brazil, we actually offered all of our developers to take piano lessons, or actually music lessons in general. That we said, we will get you to a teacher so that they understand at least the struggles that people. Because if people that are building for a certain group don't understand the struggles, so that's why we said to all of our team, we will get you piano lessons, and they all loved it. And I think that is also, that really got us to this point. We are a team we're not a big team, but we're a small team of passionate people. This was it started with me. It became a family initiative from our side, and we had a lot of hurdles, and we had enough moments to say, we should stop with this, because we're not getting anywhere. But that's not who we are. We are really, if we have a focus and a vision and we believe in it, we will bend over backwards to get there. And I think now, after all these years, we finally got there. And that's it. We are trying, and we're trying to just make a product that is very accessible. Currently, it's free, like you've seen on the App Store. We're not going to overprice it. Our objective is not to make an enormous amount of money. Of course, we need to keep alive, but we know that, as we were students ourselves, that especially in the music and in the creative industry, people don't have too much to spend. And in general, nowadays, it becomes on all kinds of things. So we just want to create a fantastic solution so that people can play music, which gives them a good feeling, and it's accessible, to share it with your loved ones, your teachers, and your friends. that is our objective.
I think that is more than noble. I think that is just really powerful. To give people that the language of music might be one of the greatest gifts that anyone can have.
And it's universal, yeah.
Victoria, beat me to it. We say music is the only language that needs no translation. It's spoken everywhere the same in every country.
Yep, 100%, 100%. And I also want to be clear, to the listeners out there. Like I've played around with the app. I'm super impressed with it, and I'm just really excited about using it even more. For myself and for my students, and seeing the developments happen. But I also want to be clear, like I'm not being endorsed by that. Clefer doesn't pay me to do this. I'm really excited about this app, and I think it's a really it's such a useful tool. It might be one of the most useful tools because it does provide that daily accountability. For those who really want to learn. But are, can easily get frustrated. I think this can be just an enormous helpful tool for teachers to implement into their into their workflow.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, for the teachers out there, so currently we're working together with teachers actually on we call it the teacher-student module. We don't know yet how it's going to be called, but it's purely an extra feature for teachers so that they can connect within Clefer with their students. And teachers have asked us for, so you can send a homework assignment to your student and then it appears as a lesson in the Clefer coach. Even the icon of the Clefer coach gets replaced with your teacher so that you really have a feeling as if it's your teacher talking to you. There are also all kinds of features that we're working on that teachers have asked for that is currently not available yet, but will be rolled out and introduced soon, whereby it really becomes the extension of when the student leaves your house, you still have a little bit of control to see what is happening, to increase productivity and efficiency.
Yeah. To make the best.
I think that's wonderful. And because as a teacher, I want to say, it's frustrating when you see a student who struggles, but the most frustrating thing as a teacher is when you realize the student hasn't practiced for whatever reason, and now it's like your lesson turns into a practice session, and I hate that there's not a worse lesson than a practice session lesson.
Right. Yeah. Right. And to the students out there, unfortunately, my friends, you can run, but you can't hide because now the Clefer really locks it, and there's no way of deleting it. So if you haven't done it, you're gonna get. It's gonna show.
Oh, amen. That's music to my ears, shall we say? Oh, that's great. You mentioned some of the upcoming features and things, the student teacher thing. Are there any other than adding more repertoire, things like that? What things are you looking for in the app in the near future?
Well,
that you can announce or you
we're
can share?
Focusing to, of course, expand repertoire because we know that is the number one things that that everyone wants.
People want to play the songs that they love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we will add, of course, the teacher-student module. And there are some initiatives that we're working on, some partnerships. Like I said, we're working with an artist that actually we can announce something shortly that we're going to do a campaign with. So that's nice. And I guess, one thing I've also always learned from at least my family is that standing still is not an option. So we will never stand still. There are all kinds of things, and probably once people are starting to use it more, great ideas will come. Teachers will come with nice initiatives. We will improve technology better. Whilst more research comes out to make it even better. We only just got started, and the road ahead I think is a great one. If people can just bear with us. Like I said, we are a small company, but we're a passionate company. So we listen to what people want, and we'll make it happen.
Wonderful. Obviously, people can get the app from the App Store. You mentioned that soon, maybe in the next 2 or 3 months, there'll be an Android app available, which is just gonna I think that's just gonna open up a whole another horizon for people. What I know you're based in the Netherlands. Are you gonna be traveling and sharing the app around the country? What are your plans?
Yeah, well, so yeah, we're based in the Netherlands because, of course, I'm Dutch, and through COVID we ended up here. But we have contractors actually all over the world that are working on the app. But the core team currently is in the Netherlands. But yes, I am traveling now that the product is at a stage whereby we want to share it. We're going to conferences.
MTNA.
We were at the MTNA. We are at a conference in July in Chicago, and yeah, that's just going to increase more and more whilst we roll out the product.
Man, well, I hope you guys seriously truly the best success. I think your vision and more importantly your intention is pure, and I think that's it does when I see all these piano learning or music learning apps. It does feel very not that I love technology. But I also understand as a musician, there's some things technology can't do. And so the fact that you're kind of melding the two, I think is just such a beautiful collaboration between teacher, student, and technology.
Right. Exactly.
Kind of not necessarily a question specifically to your app, but I am curious from your music and your technical background. Because I think this is an important question that all of us need to start thinking about and answering is what is the role that you think AI is going to play? Maybe not necessarily in your app, but in music learning. How are we going? What are going to be some things that you're looking for with AI as a part of the teacher-student relationship and the just learning music in general?
It's a very good question because, of course, AI is something that is the buzzword of the day at the moment. Whilst ironically, it has been around, of course, for the past 10 to 15 years. But now, because of the the latest releases of ChatGPT and OpenAI and Gemini, and it became so accessible. So yes.
And by the way, I personally I hate even using the term AI because it's not artificial intelligence. It's just great coding,
right? No, and so yeah, so the entire foundation of Clefer has nothing to do in itself with AI. We use neural networks and data sets to capture sound and computing and respond and creating responses. The Clefer code uses a bit of AI, but that's only to translate our own computations into some more accessible, outputs for users to understand. It actually also adapts based on age. So if you're a younger student, the Clefer coach will teach to you a little bit more youthfully to understand. And if you are 50 plus, the coach will still, it's all the same technology underneath, but it will talk to you in a way that it probably will resonate more. Where are we going? Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I'm using AI for myself, mostly on productivity, enhancements. We have a lot of meetings, and before, at the end of the meeting, people would go back to their desk and forgot about what we discussed, because of course there were so much things to do. Now with AI, we have a transcription and we have a summary even before the meeting is over, so I can send it directly to the team and said, what, guys, these are the action points. And I think with so many new things, if it was the internet, email, fax, there are a lot of good things that can come out of it, but also very quickly a lot of bad things. And I think it depends on,
how you channel that.
Yeah, because one of the things that our users say, and also teachers, what we've learned is that music is something emotionally and personal, and AI is actually the opposite. That is absolutely not. So we will try to stay away from it. If there are certain things that we can improve, certain things, we will do it, but we're very careful because, again, we want to make something. Clefer needs a soul. It needs to be personal. You need to have the feeling that practicing almost in a warm bath. And that's why we steer away from these, cold solutions. And that's why people even still go to teachers, because they like that connection. Right. So, yeah, I mean, in the world of AI, a lot of things can happen. And I'm sure that in 5 years from now, we could not even believe where we were now. But with Clefer, we're very cautious because, again, music, it is all about your feelings, being in a certain bubble, feeling good, or even sometimes you want to feel sad. And that's already enough. You don't need, outside computing stuff to outsource that.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a great way to put it, and I love that. I want to feel like I'm practicing in a warm bath. I'm using that one.
Great.
TM. That's
actually.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come on. Is there anything like Victoria, Frits? Is there anything that you want that maybe we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that you get out to people about Clefer or about what you guys are doing?
I think we've touched on all the points that we wanted to.
Hey,
yeah, I think so too. But probably after we hang up, we thought,
we should have mentioned it.
We should have mentioned
The only thing I want to mention.
Well, you know what?
Is that it's Clefer with an F.
Yes.
Use it, yeah.
Right, yeah. So we have after years of deliberating and going back and forth, I finally came up with the name Clefer with an F, of course, from bass clef, treble clef. No, but I think we took...
Well, and we'll put links in, and I hope you guys, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you guys will come on again, because it's, and we could talk about, of course we'll talk about Clefer, but you guys just seem like just great people. So I'd love to have you on and, have a chat sometime. It'd be great.
It was really a pleasure.
No, Mike, it was great. And again, I think it's for, there is a face behind Clefer. It's a team of, again, people that really want to create something that can help people along. And all the rest that comes out of it is just a consequence of that objective. And like I said, we had already some tough years behind us, but we're really looking forward. And if people can bear with us, and give us input, if they have input, good or bad, doesn't matter. Together, we will listen and we can make it happen.
I think the difference of Clefer is that we are not like whatever is out there, the others, and the tiles falling on the keyboard on YouTube.
Right.
We are not making something, trying to create a new community. We are building something for this community that has been neglected for a long time, really. So we just want to merge it and say, hey, here we are.
Exactly.
It's not new. We are just reaching out for this community that has existed since forever.
Yeah.
Well, I think I couldn't said it better. I think that's exactly right. And I said it before, and I just want to reemphasize, I really appreciate your guys' purity of intention. I can see that in the app, and I can feel it from the conversation we're having. And I just, as a musician, as a music mentor, I really appreciate that intention, because it means a lot that you care so much about the art of music and that it's done correctly. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys, and we're definitely going to have you guys on again, because like I said,
I can't wait. This was really fun. Yeah. This was
good. I'm glad.
For us, this was actually our first podcast ever.
What?
Yeah, we listened to a lot of podcasts, but now we were allowed to be part of it. So we will bear this moment in our hearts forever, because this was very special.
That means a lot to me, and thank you thank you for being willing to come on, and you guys were amazing guests. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And all of y'all are listening to And If Love Remains.